In Lesson 7.4, we're going to use what we knew about multiplying the polynomials and try to reverse it, or think of what might divide out. We're going to use the term factor for a division. So if we think of the GCF, the greatest common factor, you may have done this before. If I had, say, 6 and I had a 14, and I said, what's the greatest common factor of those two numbers? We're looking for what number goes into both 6 and 14, or multiplies to 6 and multiplies to 14. Well, 2 does. 2 times 3 makes 6, and 2 times 7 makes 14. So we say our GCF, or our greatest common factor, is 2. Again, we're looking for the highest number that divides out of those numbers. So when it comes to a polynomial, if we're looking for the greatest common factor, here I have a 12 and an 8 and a 6. We have to remember that we're looking for the highest number that divides out or multiplies into each of those. Now I know 6 multiplies to 6 and 6 multiplies to 12, but it won't go and multiply into 8. So it turns out that the highest number that we can multiply into both 12, 8, and 6 is a 2. Now, if we're looking at the x's, we have to think about what's the highest number of x's we can divide out of all three of these. We have to look at our least degree here. We only have x times x times x here. This guy only has 3 x's to give. This one has 4 and this one has 5. So the greatest one they have in common is an x to the third. Our greatest common factor is 2x to the third. That means we can divide each of these 12, 8, and negative 6 coefficients by 2, and x to the third is in each of those variables. So let's try a greatest common factor down here. Notice for our x's, there are no x's with the 18, so we will not have an x common factor in here. But if we look at our numbers, 15 and 18 are both divisible by 3. So in this case, our greatest common factor is just the constant 3. He brings up an idea here. We have a negative 18, a positive 6, and a positive 24. Notice how our leading coefficient, that means our number that comes first, is negative. It's very helpful and mathematically correct to divide out your greatest common factor having a negative then. So again, if you are writing your polynomial in standard form, that means a 4 and a 3 and a 2, your powers go down in order, and your first coefficient, or this number out front, is negative. When looking for the greatest common factor, you're going to have a negative. Now, when it comes to what number itself goes into 6 or 18, 6, and 24, it just so happens that 6 is our greatest common factor because 6 goes into 6, 6 goes into 18 3 times, and into 24 4 times. So our greatest common factor for the number, or our coefficient, is a negative 6. As for our x's, remember we go to the least amount that there would be out of all of our x terms. Since it's written in standard form, we can see our lowest amount is the x squared. Therefore, that's all that everybody has in common. So our greatest common factor is negative 6x squared.